Well, the GOP is coming back in this fall's congressional election. This, according to the latest Fox News poll, that shows the race is starting to tighten with the Democrat lead dwindling. Democrats who were up by 15 points in October's generic balloting clinging to a slim 5-point margin right now. Even more, the poll finds that economic confidence is growing. In fact, for the first time since 2010, fewer than half of voters say they feel nervous about our economy. Here now to discuss, Kayleigh McEnany, RNC spokeswoman, and Amy Kremer, chair and co-founder of Women for Trump. Kayleigh, this is great news, but what I find even more intriguing about it is that the headlines are always negative President Trump, whether it's a potential encounter he had a dozen years ago that you wonder what the hell it has to do with today, or no matter what. I find it interesting because it's not just the Fox poll. There was a CNN poll out today. There was another poll. All the polls are showing the same thing.
Absolutely. And I love that you put it in the context of how the media spins it, because on an alternate network, the Chiron read Trump approval rating up amid chaotic week. So they always have to put a negative spin on it when it's positive news for Trump, positive news for Republicans. We're closing that gap, Charles. So encouraging as we go into the midterms. And as I would point out, in 2014, Democrats were up by 2 in the same generic balloting, and we went on to win 13 seats. So it's great news for Republicans. The economy's roaring, but the media will never let you know the whole story.
Besides the economy, is there something else that you sense going on here?
Absolutely, and taxes too. Within that Fox poll, we saw that comparing to last year, we're up 4% on the economy over the outlook from last year. We're up 8% when people are looking at taxation and the policies Republicans have put in place. And then foreign policy, he's just breaking records with ISIS fleeing and North Korea, the meeting that's on the horizon. So it's good on all fronts. He
pulls off this trade thing with China. I got to tell you, it's going to be all she wrote. By the way, on that part about people feeling nervous about the economy, in 2010, 70% of folks said they were nervous. Right now, that's down to 47%. But Amy, we just saw an election in Pennsylvania where the Democrat ran as a de facto Republican to a degree. Yes. But the margin of error wasn't that Republicans didn't show up. They just didn't have the same drive, right? The ground game. And that's sort of like where you come in. Not that is your job, but that's where that's
as a founder of the Tea, one of the founders of the modern day Tea Party movement, I'm really concerned because of what we've seen in Pennsylvania and some of these other elections and what we saw this past weekend with the March for Our Lives. Those kids were there because they, are all about what happened in Parkland, but that was put on by adults, and there is a lot of money behind that, Charles. And what concerns me is the amount of money behind it, and the Dems have the momentum right now. And I say that because if you think back to 2010 with the Tea Party movement, and we took back the House, and we had no money behind us. People don't realize that, but at the beginning of the Tea Party movement, we had no money behind us, and look what we were able to accomplish with no money and the momentum. So this should be a huge red flag to Republicans that they better get on their game and focus on the midterms.
By the same token, Amy, the result of that was an amazing election, rounds of election, ever since then, and consequently, Republicans are now in control of the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. But it feels like many of them have ignored the Tea Party and ignored grassroots voters.
They absolutely have, and they still want to push us to the side. Now, I'll admit, I was very discouraged with what happened with this omnibus. And that was another part of while the Republicans, and I say the Republicans, Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, were kicking their base in the face with pushing through this huge omnibus bill and putting the president in a corner where he has to sign it or the government's going to shut down. At the same time, the Dems are motivating their base with this march. And so we really have to get busy and focus on what's at hand, because we can't allow this president not to fulfill his America First agenda he's promised the American people.
And Kayleigh, on that note, President Trump was visibly upset that he had to sign this. He was sort of boxed into a corner. He did get an enormous amount of money for our troops. In fact, the biggest pay raise that they've seen in a long time. We know, in addition to armament, they need more money. So that's great. But how do you, as someone who's really working within the RNC, how do you get all Republicans sort of on the same page as you go into the midterms?
Well, it's a great question. And one of the things is looking to what the stakes are. And the stakes are, if we have a Democratic takeover of the House, I don't want to use the I word because there's no basis for impeachment, but Democrats will go there. So if you want more Obamacare, if you want higher taxes, Chuck Schumer has already talked about rolling back the crumbs, the tax cuts that have put $1,000 into more American people's pockets. He's going to roll that back. And then you're going to be talking about impeachment with no basis in truth or reality. But nevertheless, Democrats will take us there, and we cannot let that happen.